Everyone, Michele Lim here. I'm very excited today because I'm bringing you another subject or another topic from this book that I'm reading at the moment, Mastering Stand Up. And I know that I said I was going to take it in order, and then this week I was going to do the different forms of stand up, but I'm mixing up the order a little bit because I actually started reading a little bit further into the book, which is about creating comedy content because I have a new gig on Saturday and I wanted to take some notes on that and see if I could put those notes to the test. So today I'm going to be covering chapters 19 to like 22 or 23, which is basically all about creating your comedy content. It was really great for me to read this book. I feel like it's very insightful and it really helps to one solidify things that I already know. So not to humble brag, but if you have been watching my videos for a while, I feel like a lot of the things that I'm reading about in this book I've said before on my videos, so that's really reassuring for me to know that I'm on the right track, and I also have the same views as this comedian teacher, and I also even use the same terminology, guys. Who knew? You were getting it first. You heard it here first on the Michele Lim show. Jokes per minute, um, other things. Sorry, laughs per minute. I can't even get the term right. Other things like that. Anyway, so let me tell you about this a little bit. Also, two news updates. One, shout out to my new subscriber, S. Pat. Very excited to have you here. Another female comic. Love when female comics subscribe to my channel. Two, I signed up for Sketchfest 2020, so hopefully I get chosen. That's the San Francisco comedy festival show, and hopefully I can write my own show for that. So that's going to be really exciting. I just put my application in last week. And then thirdly, I know last week I was like, sorry for being gross looking, and then I was like, no, I don't have to apologize for what I look like because I don't owe society the price of looking good. And I know nobody asked for that, but I just got to put it out there that I retract that apology. I take it back. I don't care what I look like, and whatever. That's not the price I have to pay in society. Okay, back to the book. So I took away a lot of great things from this book. The first thing that I took away was that, comedy is not just about the topics, it's about your perspective on the topics. And Stephen has written this really great analogy where he talks about Van Gogh and his painting Starry Nights. Um, and basically, he says, like, every time this painting goes on tour, people line up for hours outside whatever museum it is just to have a look at that painting. And if they wanted to just look at Starry Nights, then they could just look up at the night sky. But they don't. They want to see Van Gogh's perspective on Starry Nights. And that was a really great analogy for me. So basically, what I took away from that and what I wrote down in my little diary is the real subject is me. Like, you are the subject of your comedy. And that's why, sometimes you might think, oh, I don't want to do this joke because someone else has already done it. But there's really not very many topics in the world for comedy. It's like dating, your family, things you don't like, things you like. And a lot of the time, other comics are going to have those same topics as well. But the perspective or the difference that you can bring to it is your own perspective on it. So don't feel discouraged if you're just making jokes about the same topics. You have a voice and it's time for you to share your own voice. So that was great. Second thing that I really liked is how they talk about not throwing anything out. You shouldn't throw anything out. You should just write everything down because sometimes it'll take a couple of revisions to get the gold, to chip away at that comedy gold. So if you just throw everything out, if you write it down once and then it's not funny, then you're not giving yourself a fair chance to discover that. He talks about how when you're writing your first draft, you should just free flow, write whatever comes out, like a comic medium. He says, like you're just kind of writing and you're gathering all these thoughts from the comedic, like uh, other world, um, and basically you just free flowing all your thoughts, no censorship, and you can like sort it out later. So I thought that was a really good tip because a lot of the times we're really hard on ourselves. Like as soon as we write a joke and it's not funny, then we just like throw away the concept. Like that's obviously not a good concept. When in actual fact, it takes a lot of work to be able to like refine your concepts, refine the wording to get that comedy gold. What else does he say? So he talks about that. Um, he says stuff about he says like writer's block is not caused by your sense of humor disappearing, but it's caused by you rejecting your sense of humor. The problem isn't that you've stopped coming up with funny ideas, but that you're snuffing them out as soon as you have them. You're not letting them see the light of day, and you're not doing what you need to do to discover whether something is funny or not. So you have to write it down and try it out. The cure to writer's block is to stop editing yourself. Write down your funny ideas and add to them. So I thought that was a really good point. Other good points he made. He says, yeah, and this is on this art of like performing stand-up comedy. So he says part of the craft and art of performing stand-up comedy is creating the illusion that you're being spontaneous on stage. There's a word for creating this illusion: acting. Just as skilled scriptwriters find the best way to phrase a line, the gifted stand-up comedy writer finds the best way to word a joke. When that happens, and you know it's happened from the big laughs you consistently get from the audience, there's no longer room for improvement. Rephrasing it will only hurt it and perhaps kill the laugh. So I know that we've talked before about how a lot of comedians seem like they're doing it off the cuff and they just say it. And for people that don't do comedy, a lot of the times they're like, wow, he was so good. He just started talking to the audience and then he was making all these jokes. And it seems unplanned, but it's totally planned. And I've talked about that a little bit in the conversational stand-up starter, where you kind of act like you're having a impromptu conversation, but you're actually kind of leading it down a path that you already know. Um, what else? Okay, so this one I've said before. It's basically about not writing jokes which are just for other comedians. So I talked about this in my pet peeves when comics go to open mic nights and they just say jokes and other comedians laugh at them, and it's just not good. So don't do it. Basically, don't play to the band. So don't try to crack up the guys who are the other comedians. You need to make the audience laugh. Um, because inside jokes can get big laughs from other performers but fall completely flat for the paying audience. So that is true. Next, okay, what else is it saying? Yeah, so basically it's just saying like you need to gauge the open mic nights. Sometimes there's going to be open mic nights where it's full of comics, and you're not going to get these laughs that you want. And you might think, oh shit, now all my jokes are terrible. I don't want to do them anymore. But that's because it's not the right audience because they're all comics. They're probably not listening. They're just looking over their own notes. They're kind of analyzing the joke and seeing how they could word it better themselves. You need to make sure that when you're testing out your jokes, that you are performing it to hopefully a paying audience who is invested, or at least a group of people that are not comics who are not going to just, overanalyze your jokes. Okay, and then the last thing that I wanted to talk about, which really helped, something that kind of became clear to me when I was reading this couple of chapters, is that a lot of the time when I'm writing jokes and I'm performing them for the first time or the first few times, I'm not refining my jokes enough. I will like write a joke and then if I say it and it doesn't get a laugh, then I throw it away. And I feel like I'm really hard on myself because I think that every time I perform a joke in front of an audience, it has to be perfect. And if it doesn't get a big laugh, then I throw it away. But what Stephen is saying is that every time you perform a joke, and obviously you don't want to do this when it's a really big important performance, but you should be treating every gig as a chance for you to test out material and refine your jokes. So even if you say a joke for the first time or the second or third time, it's like a fairly new joke and you're not getting the big laughs, you need to notice which bits get the little snippets of laughter and then hone in on those bits, and then that will help you create a new joke or a really good joke. So you don't have to think every time that you perform that you have to have fully formed jokes. I mean, the process of writing a joke and performing it and refining it is a long process. And me especially, I need to remember that every time I have a gig, even if some of the jokes don't get big laughs, it's a great opportunity for me to fine tune those jokes. Because yeah, a lot of the concepts, it's like great in concept, hard in execution, right? So you just got to make sure that you execute properly. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm really enjoying this book. I will have more updates for you next week. Thank you so much for subscribing. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you next week. Bye.